Good morning, Chief Constable.
Morning, Commissioner.
Welcome. Thank you for joining me here in Tredegar for our first Public Accountability Forum. And as you know, the Public Accountability Forum is a way of going out to our communities, listening to what they've got to say and really taking on board some of the issues that they raise with us. This is our first meeting and we've got a plan, haven't we, to take these out to our 5 local authority areas across Gwent over the course of the next year. So the meeting gives us an opportunity to come together and discuss the concerns that people have raised. And people across Blaenau Gwent have been talking to my team, but I've also been out here at a number of events as well, just listening to people and what they've got to say. And we've been talking to children and young people as well about their experiences here in Blaenau Gwent, and our questions are informed by what we've heard out in our communities. I'd like to begin really by discussing with you an issue that lots of people raise with us, and is something, as you know, comes up time and time again. And residents ask me why it is that we don't see more uniformed officers on our streets. And this is something that has come up in a number of meetings, and I always try to explain. But I thought it might be helpful to discuss this in a little bit more detail with you today, Chief Constable, and ask you what actions are you taking as our Chief Constable here in Gwent to build trust and confidence in neighbourhood policing here.
Thanks, Commissioner. So I think I'd start by accepting the comments that have been made in the feedback given to you about visibility being really important for our communities. As the Chief Constable for Gwent, my mission for our police service is to improve trust and confidence in Gwent Police. And I'm really aware that trust and confidence comes from not just being good at the job that we do and providing a really effective service, but actually being out there and engaging with people, providing a policing service that they actually want, that our communities want, that the people of Blaenau Gwent want. And the only way that we're able to do that is if we're out there and we're listening and we're present and we're understanding what local concerns are and local challenges are, because that way we'll be able to tailor our service effectively. Now, a huge part of that is having an effective neighbourhood presence and making sure that we've got true community police officers and police community support officers who are speaking to all different people within their areas to provide the service that they actually want. And also making sure that they're aware of what we're doing and what we're actually getting results-wise, because in turn, that'll give people confidence to report things to us. So coming traditionally from a neighbourhood community background in policing is something that's really close to my heart, is something that I've really wanted to drive within our organisation. I know our workforce are full of people who want to provide a great service for the people of Gwent, and they're really bought into that. And there's a lot of exciting developments in the future that we're going to work on to enhance on that visibility, to make sure people really feel and see that there's a bigger presence of police to make them feel safe as well as be safe within their communities.
And I know that people really value the community support officers, and I've actually been up in Brimau where there's somebody that's been working with the community there for many years, and not only has she worked with some people there when they were children, but she's now working with their children again. And it's that relationship, isn't it, that can really help in terms of supporting our communities.
Without a doubt, trust is not something that comes easily. You can lose trust very quickly, but it takes a long time to build trust and earn trust. And that means that we've got to be reliable. We've got to make sure that we're responding to people at their times of need. We've got to be addressing local concerns and local challenges. We've got to be providing the police service that the people of Gwent want and are proud to have. And that's really a strong thing. And having the consistency of people like you just described, who are embedded within their communities and known by different generations within their neighbourhoods, that all goes towards building that trust and confidence. So having a bit of consistency with neighbourhood staff is something that I really want to drive to.
Absolutely. And the trust and confidence is not just something that comes from that visibility and neighbourhood policing, but it's people knowing that the police are there for them, protecting them and keeping them safe. And in these challenging times, actually, there's a lot of work that goes on that people don't see, isn't there, that really helps keep us all safe in our communities.
Absolutely, and I think that engagement aspect of things that I've talked about is something that we've really had to focus on of late, and something that's a priority for us within Gwent Police. I think we've got to be more active in the way that we showcase that great work that's going on. I see fantastic work that very hard-working colleagues do every single day and every single night, 365 days of the year. We've got to make sure that we promote that effectively using our communications methods on social media, and we've really started up in the way that we undertake that, using proactive communications, and again we're improving the way that we're doing that too, but also simply going out and talking to people as well, and making sure that our community representatives are well cited on work, because like I say, that is a bit self-serving in the fact that it generates people to say, well, actually, now you've done that, you might want to address this as well, and it gives people confidence to report things.
Absolutely. And on the subject of reporting, I would like to move on to some specific issues that have been raised with me from residents in Abertillery. So we know that recently our residents in Abertillery have experienced a spate of burglaries, and this is causing concern within our communities. And I'd just like to ask you, Chief Constable, what is the operational policing response to this? And how are those officers working with our communities there to provide both support and crime prevention advice? Yeah,
so I think I'd start off by saying that I'm really concerned about that spate of burglaries that happened between January and May. And there was an increase of 17 burglaries, garage burglaries, and a number of off-road bikes and motorbikes were stolen. And I know that burglary is a horrible crime, and being subjected to that as a victim is something that really leaves a mark on people. So my thoughts go out to those victims of crime. First of all, I want to make sure that victims are given a first-class service in the future when they are unfortunate enough to be a victim of crime. But I really want to prevent them from being victims in the first place. So I know that our neighbourhood teams recently ran a community surgery on the 16th of June, where they were able to speak to members of the community about things that they could do to stop themselves becoming victims. So target hardening their premises and making sure that they were taking effective crime prevention advice to keep themselves safe. Now, what I'm pleased to report is that after those crimes, we haven't had a crime now in over 4 weeks of that nature within Abertillery. But that doesn't mean that we're not taking our foot off the gas in relation to making sure we've got a strong visible presence up there to deter people from committing these types of crimes. We have recovered some of those motorbikes that were stolen from some of those garages. I can understand that it must be frustrating for people, and they think that why have we not been able to detect more of these crimes? But we'll do everything we can in relation to using our forensic capabilities, in relation to using any CCTV opportunities that are there as well, to try and continue to investigate those crimes and get a positive outcome out of them.
And that's really helpful. Thank you for that. And I'm sure that will provide some reassurance to those citizens in those communities. Moving on from that a little bit, I'd like to talk about antisocial behaviour. And this is a recurrent issue, isn't it? Across the whole of Gwent, people talk to us about issues that affect them in their communities. And these really, antisocial behaviour can be quite serious, can't it? And it can blight people's everyday lives. And sometimes it does make people feel unsafe in their own communities as well. Now, I've been talking to some people who've come to me, who've said they're concerned about antisocial behaviour, but not only residents concerned about it in their communities, also some of our businesses as well. And some of our businesses have told me that they've had to change their opening hours because of issues like this. So on their behalf, Chief Constable, how are Gwent Police working with partners to address the challenges that are presented by ASB? And perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about how the new legislation recently introduced by the UK government will help police in dealing with these issues in future.
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying, Commissioner, I fully appreciate that antisocial behaviour is a real concern amongst our communities. the engagement that I've personally undertaken with different community councils, with stakeholders and with communities themselves says to me that this is amongst the top concerns of people, especially in Blaenau Gwent. Now, we know also that the Home Office have got a strong intention of helping us tackle this issue in line with their Safer Streets programme over the next 4 years. And we have received, as have all police forces, some funding to be able to enhance our neighbourhood capabilities to address these issues. And we in Gwent have also been successful in gathering some funding for operations which are specific to antisocial behaviour. So we had Operation Lumley running last year, whereby we had over 7,000 hours of police officer time targeting our top areas of antisocial behaviour. And within that 12-month period, those areas virtually all of them, averaged at about 10% less antisocial behaviour during that period that we ran the operation. I'm pleased to report that we've actually received further funding to continue that operation, and this year's operation is called Operation Lockwood. And Tredegar, where we are now, is one of those areas that we will be focusing our antisocial behaviour operation on. And we look to see good results that come from that. Now, specifically in relation to retail and businesses, I can understand how this is hugely impacted for them, because it's people's livelihoods, and to hear of people changing their hours of operating is just totally unacceptable for me. That is a last resort of what someone's doing to avoid antisocial behaviour. So a strong intention to support local businesses. I want to make sure that people in Gwent are able to operate in Gwent and make sure that the Gwent pound keeps going round. And ensure that people are working and living in a safe place where they're really happy. So having the local neighbourhood teams addressing those local issues with problem-orientated plans, looking to work with partners to be able to design out problems, looking at working with partners to diversionary methods as well, to take people away from committing these types of antisocial behaviour, because antisocial behaviour comes in many, many different forms. And there is a bit of a misperception that antisocial behaviour is all undertaken by young people, but it comes in a lot of different remits. Now, you touched earlier on about the new legislation, the crime and sentencing bill, which will be coming in, specifically brings in an opportunity for respect orders, and it'll be really a joined-up approach for us all to work together with partners to introduce these respect orders and bring that element of social responsibility to people, to understand and educate people about the effects of their behaviours are having on others. And I think it gives us another opportunity, and a joined up opportunity with our partners, to be able to address it in a different way, because we know that punitive has its areas where it works, but working on a long-term approach to eradicating antisocial behaviour is where we need to be.
And I'm really glad to hear you mention the importance of partnership working, because across the whole of Gwent, our partnerships are strong, aren't they? And I'm sure there'll be many partners willing to come on board with that and work together to help make lives in our communities better for all of our citizens. So absolutely. I'm really glad to hear you mention that.
And I think under our community safety partnerships panels, at a tactical level, we're working very, very closely with our local authority colleagues, with our housing associations, and with the third sector voluntary agencies as well. We've got some fantastic people who care so much about Gwent, and getting us all together to work for the benefit of the communities of Gwent is a shared objective for us all.
And I'm so glad you touched on that, because you've actually moved on to my next question. And my next question is around public safety. So a few weeks ago, my team was at Bringback Park, and I know that there were policing colleagues there as well. And we had a lot of interaction with children and with young people. And they told us that they felt safe in their communities, and they knew that the police were there to help them. So it's really good to have that feedback from the younger generation. But I've had some different feedback from some adults that I've spoken to, who've told me that sometimes they don't feel safe. And people who've raised this have also asked about CCTV. Mm-hmm. And I just wondered if you could just give us an idea about what Gwent Police are doing to assure people that they are safe within their communities. And going back to that point about partnership working, how do you work with partners on this? Because obviously the CCTV, for example, is not a policing issue, is it? Other partners operate that.
That's right. So I suppose what I'd say, first of all, is it's really encouraging to hear young people give the feedback that they do feel safe out and about within their areas around Blaenau Gwent. Albeit I'll never be complacent in relation to that, because obviously looking after people's safety of all ages is a huge priority for me, and safety comes not just on the streets but on the virtual streets too. And I'm aware that our young people, our elderly and everybody are potentially susceptible to different types of crime these days. So being aware, being alert, educating people to the types of fraud is really important. People don't put themselves in those positions, especially young people, of speaking to people that they don't know is a high concern for me. But particularly in relation to physical safety as well on the streets, and those concerns that have been voiced to you in relation to CCTV cameras. The CCTV footage that is in the main towns across Blaenau Gwent is owned and monitored by Blaenau Gwent local authority. It is operative in Tredegar, in Ebervale, in Bryn Mawr, and our police community support officers and our neighbourhood teams regularly work with Blaenau Gwent local authority to be able to capture when incidents have happened and when offences have happened, where we can get copies of that CCTV as well, and also the local authority report to us effectively when they're seeing things which are looking suspicious or things that shouldn't be happening in the area as well, throughout our control room to be able to take that positive action. So it is a joined up approach. We work closely with all of our local authority partners. In fact, I was only engaging with the Chief Executive Blaenau Gwent local authority this morning over other matters. So that's happening at all levels within the organisation, and will be moving forward. It's an absolute must for us to be able to get a joined up approach.
Thank you for that, and I'm sure that's really helpful for the public who may be watching this to know that the strength, not just the strength of the partnership working, but the practical actions that come from that. So thank you for that. Now, Chief Constable, there is an issue that we haven't touched on yet. There is a significant issue here in Blaenau Gwent, and that, of course, is off-road biking. Now, it's an issue that's frequently raised with me. It's been raised in every one of the areas that I've visited. And when I was in Meddygol last week, it was also a question that came up in an interview on Blaenau Gwent Radio. So there's a lot of people across our communities here talking about this, concerned about this issue. And you know, together we've met with Nick Smith MP, we've met with the leader of the council, Councillor Thomas, Councillors Morgan and Smith, and our other stakeholders to discuss these issues as well. So we've got really robust communication in place around this. Actually, we've both been here to Tredegar Town Council as well to speak to the Town Council members about it. So, given that this is an issue that pretty much touches on everybody's life here in the Blaenau Gwent area, can you update us on what Gwent Police are doing about off-road biking here in Blaenau Gwent?
Definitely. I think, first of all, Commissioner, is to totally accept that a huge concern, which is apparent across all of the communities that you've mentioned, is about off-road bikes. And I've heard that I've gone out and spoken to people firsthand and heard what their real concerns are. And I think what's really important for me is, though we will meet obviously the needs of what people want from policing and from the Home Office and from Welsh Government objectives, obviously, and part of the Safer Streets programme I talked about earlier, what is really, really important for me is, as I started saying, is providing the police service that the people of Gwent want. And what I'm hearing loud and clear, as I know you have too, is that off-road bikes is a massive concern for them. So we have had a number of successes over the last year. We run a force-wide operation called Operation Harley, which targets off-road bikes. We've had 300 vehicles seized within the last year, over 150 of them off-road bikes themselves, and all of those vehicles associated to off-road biking. But that's not enough. We need to increase that more. And so recently, what I've undertaken within the force is to invest in neighbourhood teams being bolstered by community action teams. And those community action teams are addressing issues within parts of Gwent that have got bespoke problems. So particularly Tredegar has had a community action team which has been operating since the 9th of June, so only a couple of weeks now. And within that time period, they've already seized 4 off-road bikes, 9 cars associated to off-road biking, as well as a number of positive arrests in relation to other offences too. So being really proactive in relation to this is huge. Now, we've got a number of things that we're going to do to address these concerns in the future. We're going to use our technology really well. We've got drones whereby we can actually monitor where some of these bikes are riding, and at distance we can actually record where these bikes are going. And with the changes in the crime and sentencing bill, we actually don't need a warrant to enter a house anymore to actually seize one of these bikes when they've been used in an antisocial behaviour fashion. So we're going to be proactive in relation to the use of those drones. We're also going to be proactive in the way that we want to deter people from undertaking antisocial behaviour on these bikes. So my plea for people is we've seen a huge escalation in the purchase of these bikes for young people since Christmas. Please think about the use of these bikes, because they are too often being used in an antisocial manner, and it's dangerous to the riders as well as other road users and other people in the area. So we're going to target as well people who are making this happen. So people who are selling these bikes to people without knowing who their background are. I've made a particular plea in relation to some legislative changes in relation to that. Locally, we're also going to work to make sure that petrol stations aren't selling fuel to underage people who are going up with cans to fuel their off-road bikes. So really important work. But I suppose the one thing I would say, Commissioner, is I'd use this opportunity as a bit of a public plea, really. Lots of people have got those concerns about those bikes. Lots of people know where they are. Please report them. Please tell us where they are, because we'll take positive action. We really will. Now, I understand people can sometimes be concerned about that. And if they don't want to give their identity when they ring us on 101, they can not give that identity, but they can also contact us via our social media desk. Or if they really, really felt that they wanted to do it anonymously, they can report it via Crime Stoppers. And Crime Stoppers are about to launch a 3-week campaign, particularly targeting this particular issue at our request. So we really want to work with the public of Gwent and the communities of Gwent to address this issue that they obviously find very, very concerning. It concerns us too, and I want to be able to report more action in the future. I know certain areas and community councils have been picking up on this proactive approach we've had of late, and we definitely intend on driving that and continuing it.
Thank you, Chief Constable, and it's really good to hear about the really targeted and focused campaigns that will be implemented over this, and of course hopefully the public will really see the difference through that. And obviously we're highlighting this as a concern to everybody, but you're quite right. It takes us all to work together to address this, doesn't it? So we really need people to come forward as well and share information with us too. So, Chief Constable, what I'll continue to do with my team on behalf of our citizens here in Gwent is monitor the activity of Gwent Police against the issues that we've talked about today, and we'll come back to these issues at a later date and just look to see what impact has been had, and of course I'll be feeding that back to our citizens. But I'd just like to thank you so much for taking the time to join me here today for our first Public Accountability Forum. I'm so glad that we've been able to come here to Blaenau Gwent, and particularly here in Tredegar, and I look forward to joining you again in a few months' time in another one of our local authority areas here in Gwent. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner.